Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guests are Tony Robitaille, a Vermont boxing legend, and author Alan Rubel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, we haven't done a Zoom show for a while, so it's kind of different not having the folks in the room. But Alan and I were noticing before the show began that Tony, you're the odd man out here. You're the one with hair. As in Alan and I are quite follically impaired. Tony, I remember I was trying to think how old I was when I knew you as a boxer. So you had to have been a boxer, at least in your prime, in the late 70s, early mid 80s.
Yes, I started in 1977, the fall of 77, I started fighting.
Right. What brought you into the boxing world?
Well, at that point, I had graduated from high school, out of school for a couple of years, and I competed all throughout my high school career. And I just felt like getting back into sports. And I knew of Dr. Donald Vieburst, and Derby Line was a boxing, a fighter himself. And he trained some people, and I approached him, and it took off.
You're a Newport boy, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And Newport in its heyday had quite a number of boxers. I mean, back in the 30s, like Tony Mirandola or Bombshell Carter, who was a super lightweight.
I remember my dad speaking of that.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the event coming up, Alan. Was it you who came up with this idea, or was this Tony or somebody else about the?
It was actually one of our board members, Rick Milliken. Rick is one of the co-founders of the Vermont Sports Hall of Fame, and he brought it up to me. He said, "Hey, let's, in order to promote Tony, promote our book, Vermont Gold." Rick said, let's do a Tony Robitaille Day in Newport. And he contacted Joanne over to the library, and she loved the idea. And we're going to be doing it on the 26th of February at 3:00 at the library. And Tony's going to be there. He's going to be promoting Vermont Gold, promoting Vermont Sports Hall of Fame, and promoting Tony. Because he's not only was he a boxer, but I don't think a lot of people realize how good of a boxer he really was, because he was a 4-time, not only Vermont Golden Glove champion, but a 4-time New England Golden Glove champion. At one time, he was rated, if I'm not mistaken, I think I'm right, Tony, number 2 in the world. And he fought Mike Tyson as an amateur in Albany, New York, and everybody at the fight thought he won the fight, but he lost a split decision to Mike. So we got a living legend living right there not living in Newport now, but living in actually Williston, but living in Vermont, and a fantastic athlete, and better yet, a fantastic person.
Right. That often happens. Your own hometown often doesn't really understand how great you are in a given, whether a given career or a given sport. They're usually the last ones who know. Tony
not only was a great athlete in boxing, but I think he was a state champion. And again, Tony, you can jump in here, but I think it was in track and field you were a state champion in a couple events, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, my senior year, I won the shot put and the discus state champion. Yep. That was in my track and field career was as much fun as my boxing career was. Believe me, it was a great part of my life.
Back though, they didn't hit you back either, or throw the
right.
No
one punched me back then.
or the discus or whatever.
I was telling Alan on my previous radio show that I thought it would be a great promotion if you managed to just get Mike Tyson on the phone and tell him to come on up and you guys can have a rematch.
That would be interesting.
It would be interesting just to see him in Newport.
Right. So tell me, when you were fighting him, was there anything that said this guy's going to go somewhere?
No. When I first spotted him in the locker room before the fight, he was relatively small heavyweight. And at that point I was getting toward the end of my career, and I'd seen a lot of different fighters, and he just didn't look like, he was going to be that big of a threat until I stepped in the ring with him and he came flying across the ring, and he was a young guy. He was,
yeah. You're an old man, Tony.
He was, I am now. I was then. No, he was a man child, really. That's the way I put it. The way he fought and how confident he was.
Right. Now, how many rounds did you go?
It was 3 rounds. All amateur fights are 3 rounds.
Okay. And what was it like? What was that fight like?
It was action packed from the beginning to the end, and he just wouldn't stop. He wouldn't stop coming. He was like a freight train. Really, I mean, yeah, I had my hands full. It was a tough fight.
Did you land any good ones on him?
Nothing to make him, nothing to stop him. No.
And how tall are you?
I'm 6 foot.
And how tall is he?
I don't know. He's like 5'10".
Okay, I guess I thought there was a little bit difference in.
But he was just, he's built like a freight train.
Right.
And that's just his makeup, But he had a great. I'm sorry.
Have you fought against anybody else who made it big?
Not really. No. There's some fighters there that they got into the pros, but I don't think they went real fire with it.
Right. Now, I'm going to be honest. Fortunately, I have always been a runner. I'm not so much now, because that's my best mechanism to
that's your thing.
avoid fights, because I can't beat my way out of a wet paper bag.
So you run the other way.
Yes. And I would have been the one running around the ring trying to avoid getting smacked upside the head.
Sure.
Now, were you ever injured? Seriously injured?
I took some pretty good hits over the year. A few concussions. The toughest fight of my career was I boxed the national Canadian champion in Highgate one night, and kind of made me stop and think what the hell I was doing in the ring with a guy like that. But that's part of fighting. That's part of the fight game.
Now I know Robin. But did you have any practice with your brothers growing up? Amateur, maybe impromptu fights?
Well,
as in like teenage boy things, not so much
with my brothers. No, I was never much of a fighter in the streets or anything. When I first started boxing, my brother Joe decided he'd spar with me. So we went out behind the house and just beat the tar out of each other.
Hey,
then as time went on, Robin spent countless hours and time with me. And he would spar even.
Right.
And actually he had a catcher's pad for his chest. He would put that on so I could punch him in the body for training purposes. So yeah.
So Alan, how did you come to know Tony?
Well, I have a background in box. I fought in the gloves in 1965 in the Vermont Golden Gloves, lost a split decision, which I still to this day thought I won. I got robbed. And through that, I had my boxing experience. I trained with a guy named Ferpel Saldi from Barrie. Ferpel was a Vermont, New England professional welterweight and lightweight champion out of Barrie. And boxing in the 30s and 40s was huge. Newport, Barrie, Hardwick, Northfield. And I met in the early 1970s, I met Ernie Farrar. And Ernie is actually another Newport legend.
Right.
And Ernie went on to, as you know, get into radio, and Ernie was also put onto the Vermont Sports Hall of Fame because of his work with kids, and he was actually saved the Vermont Golden Gloves. And Ernie and I put together a book back then called Gloves.
Right.
And Gloves I basically talked about people in the 60s and the early 30s, 40s, up to about the 70s, and Ernie took over after that. And together we put this book together, and we met Tony. Ernie knew Tony because Tony boxed in his era. And between Ernie and then I started building a relationship with Tony. And but just to let you know, and this is important, you know this, at one time I had an incredible 1-2 punch, okay, which is a left-right. Now I have a 1-8 punch. And if you don't know what a 1-8 punch is, a 1-8 punch is when you throw one and you get 8 back. That's where I am now. But boxing has been a big part of my life. And that's how I got to know Tony.
And I believe Ernie actually came on my radio show many years ago to promote your book. And that would be before we had this technology of Zoom.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Ernie was a character and a big just another legend out of the. And I'll tell you, getting off just Tony and I and Ernie, you've got some great people that came out of the Newport area. If we can talk a little bit about the book, Vermont Gold, but we've got I don't know I think you know this, but there was a guy named Adams that was the founder of the Boston Bruins. And not a lot of people don't realize that. And you've got just some amazing people between Ernie and I think Tony and let's see, there's one more I think that was out of there.
Mel Borwright.
Oh yeah, we can't forget Mel Borwright. Right. Mel was another radio personality, newspaper personality, and so we've got some great people in that book. And we're out on the day of the 26th, when we're honoring Tony, we're going to also talk about, have our book there talking about other people from the Newport area.
And that's not just boxing, that's sports stars in general, as in Vermont. Yeah.
Vermont Gold is, we honor every year, and it's usually at a banquet. Because of COVID, it's really goofed us up. But we honor every year about 8 to 10 Vermonters that have done something to honor sports, to bring Vermont in highlight of what sports has done and what is being done in Vermont. Right. And we've honored over 100 so far. And we have this year, we're going to have the class giving people a heads up, and we sell out every year. It's going to be April 30th. At the D Hotel in Burlington. And you can go on our website, VermontSportsHallOfFame.com, and basically buy tickets. And but the book will be sold, Vermont Gold. And last year, because of COVID, we didn't have our banquet. So this year we're going to we wrote the book Vermont Gold, and it's going to be this is how we're raising our money. Last thing, all the funds go to the hall and also go to Prevent Child Abuse Vermont.
Right. Okay. So what is going to, again, the date and location of the event?
Okay. The date of Tony's, is February 26th. It's a Saturday at 3 o'clock at the library. The event for the Vermont Sports Hall of Fame banquet is April 30th. And that you can go online and we haven't announced the new class yet for this year, but that'll come out within the next week or so.
Right. And I believe, well, I suspect the one at the Goodrich is probably on the second floor in the big meeting room. And if that's the case, it is also handicapped accessible by the in back of the library. There is a place that you can hop on a elevator. So if you can't climb the set of stairs, there's always the elevator.
Yeah, it's going to be, I'm sure, handicap accessible. And Tony will be there not only to sell books and to sign books, but he's going to be there just to meet. I think, Tony, you're bringing some of your trophies and some of the things, and I'm sure people can take pictures with you.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'm going to bring a number of things and share it with everybody, and we can reminisce and just be in a meet and greet type thing. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So this isn't going to be real formal, or are you going to be doing some public speaking at the same time?
I'll just do a little, I'll do a little speech in the beginning there just to get things going, and then people can ask questions, and I think it'll just be a casual thing. It's going to be nice just to see some people, see a lot of old faces and friends, and looking forward to it.
So when did you give up boxing?
1982. In fact, it was my last fight was at North Country High School.
Really? So
Yeah.
What year did you graduate from high school there?
June 18th, 1975.
Right. And how come you decided to get done?
I guess my amateur career, I was on my way to 23 years old, and it was either get out or go on as a pro. And it just wasn't in my gut to move on as a professional fighter. I had had enough, and it was time to move on. I met my wife and got married and had a family and settled down. So
do you have children then?
Yes, I have 2 children. Yes.
Did any of them follow in your footsteps?
No. I have a son, and I never pushed it onto him or even offered. If he would have asked me to show him how to fight, I would have. But I just know what fighting is, and I had some rough patches in my career, and I didn't want to see my son go through that. But as of right now, he's just a big, gentle giant kind of a guy, and I don't know if he really had the that competitive edge to get in the fight into the ring with a pair of gloves on. Anyway,
yeah. You were talking about. Well, here's the other thing in your family. You actually come from a long line of fighters, but in a different way. I remember your father saying how many brothers were served in World War II.
Yes. My uncles, there was quite a few of them there's 4 of them that were over there all at the same time.
Right.
And they're all gone now. But I remember my Uncle Bob actually put on a pair of gloves at one time. And he might have fought Tony Mirandola there. Is that what his name was?
Yeah, Tony or Tubi.
Yeah.
Tony or Tubi or.
Yeah.
But Glen Road actually created some boxers back in the 30s and 40s. Just some of them didn't do it in the ring. I've read newspaper clippings about some of the boxing some of those guys did in the local bars, and
I'm sure
it sometimes resulted in a little stay in the Newport lockup. But yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I can believe that.
It's funny.
So, Alan, what do you hope to get out of this?
My vision of this is that we promote the Vermont Sports Hall of Fame. We promote Newport. We promote the library. We promote Prevent Child Abuse Vermont. And we just promote sports in Vermont and create an atmosphere of what a tremendous thing the Vermont Sports Hall of Fame is doing and what a tremendous guy Tony Robitaille is.
So, Tony, do you think there's many people outside of your generation, the younger generation particularly, do they know about you, or have you been, like, when did you leave the area?
I left Newport in 1979.
Right. So do they know, do the younger people even know, even the younger sports people, do they know about you?
No. It's funny because I still run into people that used to go to the Golden Gloves, and that's 40 years ago, but I will be in a crowd of people and there's some of these kids that don't even know who Mike Tyson is, and people point me out and say, "Hey, Tony boxed Mike Tyson at one point in his career." And they look at you like, they don't know. Yeah. And the sad part is the boxing game isn't what it used to be either. It's not, it's all pay-per-view, and it's not advertised. It's not what it used to be when I fought. It's all UFC and that stuff.
We hear about more and more about brain injuries, whether it be from boxing or football. Did you have any side effects from the sport?
I don't think so. No, I know I had 3 concussions. And that was a big part of why I decided maybe I should step back and look into the future.
It's you fought with largely padded gloves. Is that correct?
Well, for the amateurs, yeah. The gloves I used were 12 ounces.
Right. Because back, in interviewing older people like the late Fred Prue, he boxed, but he was saying those were more like gloves. He said they really didn't have much padding to them. The gloves that I used, the amateur fighting was getting more safety conscious as time went on. Right.
And yeah, they were definitely they were much harder than your training gloves, of course, and smaller, but right. They were still well padded.
Right. Of course, one name around here that's very well known is Roger Carty, longtime now retired teacher, the son of Jesse Carty, aka Hub Parker.
Yes, I remember hearing that.
Right, he was a prominent boxer, and he also, from talking to people, he also worked as a bouncer. So I guess the two worked hand in hand.
I'm sure they did back in the day like that.
Right. Roger's you were saying how your son probably isn't, mentally as didn't want to do boxing, being a gentle giant. Now I know Roger, and Roger's a big boy, but I cannot see Roger fighting in the ring. He has a great gift for gab. I could imagine seeing him in the ring trying to
talk someone out of
trying to talk somebody out of hitting him. That probably wouldn't work. You could probably vouch for that. Right.
That's right.
Right. Well, we only have a few more minutes. Left. So how do you feel about coming back and seeing some of the old people around here, Tony?
Oh, I think it's wonderful. I'm looking forward to it. And like Alan said, this is all about awareness of what the Hall of Fame and what they do, and the Child Abuse Vermont. I think it'll open a lot of eyes and let people, people realize, what's going on with this whole thing.
Right. So why Child Abuse Vermont? Why was that chosen as the where the money's going to go?
That's a really good question. And the reason is that Prevent Child Abuse Vermont is probably done more as a nonprofit to help children with child abuse, with shaken baby syndrome, with just so many different areas. And as you know, in today's world, there's a lot of really good causes. And everybody's out there doing their best to raise money. And we just felt that sports and kids fit together. And
Right.
Prevent Child Abuse is a great organization that can use funding that does so much for children in Vermont and to protect children in Vermont. And that's what I think a lot of the kids now growing up are into sports. And we just felt it would be a perfect match, and it has been. They're an amazing, amazing organization that does so much that we're trying to, but we've partnered with.
Right. And this event is free and open to the public, anybody who wants to go.
Correct. There's no charge. You don't have to buy a book. We're hoping that you would to help Vermont Sports Hall of Fame grow and to help Prevent Child Abuse Vermont. And it's an incredible book that I wasn't the author of this book. I published it. I made it all happen as far as putting it together, but there's been other people that have written the bios, Bruce Bosley, and I know that Ted Ryan and Mike Donahue all of these people are on the board. And there's others too that have written the bios that went into this publication. And it's a phenomenal book. And it's very exciting to hear about all these athletes like Tony that are in this.
Yeah, it was Mike Donahue, the legend, a legend himself in the reporting world. I think he's old enough to be the grandfather of some of the modern day writers, because he's been a writer here in Vermont since the 1960s, I believe. Great man. And so he was the one who reached out to me.
Mike is just such a legend and such a he's working, I think, as hard now as he did before when he first started. But he's really a knowledgeable, incredible individual that's really helped sports in Vermont.
Okay, we've got to wrap up here. Tony, what are your final words?
Well, all I can say is I think this is a great cause and a great event that's going to take place. And from what I gather from Alan is this is our first event and we want to make it a good one, and they want to carry on and hopefully get other athletes around the state at their hometowns or wherever and spread the word more around the state as time goes on. So I think it's a great thing. And it's been good doing this today. I've been enjoyed this, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you hopefully on the 26th, Scott.
You ought to reach out to the two high schools here, particularly for their sports teams to attend.
That's a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Absolutely. In fact, any help on that end, on your end, can tell me, just get me who I should contact there. I'll definitely do that.
And I'll send you a link to this show so you can pass it around.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you. So I want to thank you so much, Scott. You and your and I wish you and your family well. And hopefully you'll come that day if all is well.
Yeah, if all is well, I will pay you a visit. Okay, Alan, just a minute from you. What are your final words?
I think the same thing Tony said. What the actual goal is here is that if this works the way we're hoping it's going to work, we're going to do this in other communities throughout Vermont, and promote Vermont Sports Hall of Fame, Prevent Child Abuse Vermont, and the athletes that we're going to have Hall of Famers do the same thing that Tony's doing in Newport on the 26th. My final words are, bottom line is thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share with you what we're doing.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you both for coming on today.
All right, Scott. It's
Nice
been
to
a
see- nice
pleasure.
talking to you, Scott.
And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.